Just a few housekeeping. I think the hashtag is hashtag Atlf 2021. Take note, and we'd like you to trend in Rwanda. The second point is I would like my colleagues here, ministers, CEOs, and executives to make sure the answers that we give or the responses are succinct and very clear. One core objective we would like to achieve here today for this panel is to make sure by the time we leave here, we've got some indication or some level of guidance of how the continent could have a body like PATA, a body like what they call the Caribbean Tourism Organization, that could be supported and driven by the Continental Free Trade Area, AU, and all the member states, and those of us met here today to make sure we are able to progress and take this agenda forward. Programs and activities can individual African states like Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, any other country exploit to grow their intra-Africa tourist arrivals and obviously contribution to export revenues and investment. The fact that tourism is trade in services, and we cannot talk about trade without talking about tourism. So please just guide us and the concept of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because it's becoming a buzzword, but a lot of people don't understand what it means. So if you could take us through quickly, please. Just be mindful of our time because we're already running late. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the AFCFTA Secretariat, and I want to convey to this meeting and the organizers congratulations on the thanks of our Secretary General, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. So, as you all are aware, the AFCFTA, I think one of the speakers recorded here was signed here in Kigali in 2018, and as we stand now, we have 54 countries that have signed this agreement with 43 ratification, meaning that we have 43 state parties that are ready to start trading under this preferential continental regime. And this agreement basically is aimed to establish a single market for goods and services, which can also ease the movement of people around the continent, as well as investment and finance. So the agreement is now having what we call the main agreement, which is attached three protocols. The first one is the protocol on trading goods. The second one is the protocol on trading services, and the third one is the protocol on dispute settlement. So with regard to tourism, we consider tourism to be a key sector of trading services. This is why tourism has been identified as a priority sector. So what we basically do in designing the single market of services is to have two elements that can also assist our state party to move from a crisis to growth of the intra-Africa tourism services. The first element that we use is negotiations. So we build a frame where countries are negotiating how they can liberalize their market. This is very key because on a voluntary basis, you will then go to a request and offer process to say to other countries, for instance, Rwanda, we say, I want to open my hotel and restaurant sector for you guys to come in to establish commercial presence, meaning that you can develop some new hotels here, establish a travel agency, and so on and so on. So this is the first process. And for the time being, we can already say we have a single market that is designed between 43 countries, meaning that on the offers that we have received from those countries, 43 have committed to liberalize their tourism sector. This is very important. And in liberalizing it, what does it mean? It means that first, you allow the service supplier for another state party to provide services to a cross-border means, what we call mode one. It's a bit technical, but this is how you call it. Meaning that He is established maybe in Egypt and he can provide services in Rwanda using internet. That's the first mode of providing services. The second one is to say, yes, a consumer based here in Rwanda want to consume hotel and restaurant services, but the offer here is a bit limited. He will now move to Egypt to go there and consume the services. This is what we call consumption abroad. So Egypt will then export services to Rwanda by his Rwanda citizen moving to Egypt and go and consume the services there. The third one, which is very key because it's related to investment, is what we call commercial presence. These are the most important because having such a Serena hotel require huge financing. So you have investors who want to come in a country to establish such a structure, such a hotel. How do you ease their movement? How do you ease the transfer of their funds to have the opportunity to do this? This is what you do through Mode 3 by allowing a certain, by allowing the foreign investor to come without limitation. For instance, there is no need to establish a local company. There is no need to partner with local expertise and so on and so on. And the third one is about individuals, how you ease movement of people, because tourists, to move from a country to another, they have to move. So what we call the movement of natural persons. So this one is also very key because I think one speaker recalled it. When you want to move from a country to another, you need a visa, you need a passport, and so on and so on. And within the African Union, we have been able to develop what we call the African passport. I will just show you a copy of that one. For the time being, it's only offered to us, but with this, you can move within Africa with no visa. So this is a tool that can also be used and is issued on the national basis. So it means that a country can design its own one, but with all the logos and so on, and issue it to its citizenship so that they can ease their movement. So the African passport is very key. The one element also that has been mentioned is the single market on air transport, because to move from a country, the most easiest way is to have a flight and so on. So those are few elements that we are using in terms of liberalizing through the negotiation. Then the second element that I mentioned is the regulatory framework. What are we talking about the regulatory framework? Is this way of cooperating in terms of having an insurance that the liberalization that we have granted under the negotiation will be fully implemented in a comprehensive way. So we agree on certain key principles and key obligation of state parties so that when it comes to the implementation, we have the same understanding on what are the obligations. Let me highlight one element, the quality of services. You will notice that when a service supplier is established here in Rwanda and want to provide services in Equatorial Guinea, the intention is to move to Equatorial Guinea, but reducing the cost of the providing of services by having some services that are, in terms of quality, a bit low. So with the regulatory framework, we want to be sure that the quality of services given to Rwanda here at the head office is the same at the other, where he has established a new commercial plan. So those are some few elements that can assist our individual state party that we are developing under the negotiation framework as well as the regulatory framework to recover and to boost the intra-Africa tourism sector. So I think with that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think for me, the highlight there is the African passport, and hopefully we'll come back with a question on that, how quick that can be implemented and how many countries are actually implementing it. The next question is I will start with the minister from Somalia, and then we can take it from there. Minister, we are looking at this thing helping us to grow tourism. And the question is, are there any specific mechanisms and activities that are specifically designed to guide and support private sector tourism entities from both after and also how can they basically assess these opportunities? I know that you are not from the Secretariat, but because you are a minister, obviously whatever benefits that are there will be country specific. So you could give a general perspective and from your country in a very short way because of time, please. And Zephany, the same question will come to you, please, and Philip from Tanzania perspective, before we come back to Desire, please.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, the participants of this important conference for African Tourism Leadership Forum. The more than I say is more than I learn. It's much more than what I just wanted to say. A lot of experts are here today for the tourism sector. But one thing that I wanted to note and mention is the importance of transformation. After the pandemic happening in the whole world, we know the tourism sector has been just suffering a lot. But still, I can see there's opportunity that we can change that challenges. There's always opportunity in tourism. Now, in this time, tourism is the most growing industry in terms of economics. As you're fully aware, since the advanced technology happened in the last 20 years, 10 years, and artificial intelligence is happening in the world and jeopardizing, minimizing the normal jobs. The tourism is totally different industry. It cannot be affected by technology. It cannot be affected by computers. Human beings still needs to go and spend their precious time for peaceful time and some wonderfuls, and to grasp some places that they have never seen before. So there's a big opportunity in this industry about the tourism and in Africa. One thing that I agree with my friend is to liberalize the tourism sector and they make freedom of movement in African continent can help the people can go the other sides of the continent. So I think specifically one thing is the biggest challenge. When I compare to the other world, now, even the petroleum states, like Saudi Arabia or Emirates, are moving to the tourism states rather than petroleum states. They are moving. Saudi Arabia now started a lot of projects about the tourism. Spain, I think you have seen the project is how Barcelona changed from industrial to the tourism sector. Now the world, like Indonesia, how to the Mali become the tourism city. So we need Africa to change something. It's very important, and that's my note. That one is, the biggest challenge is not the freedom of movement, or it's not the policy level. It's one thing I can say, it's culture. The African culture always is in our history, the tribes and the nations, they don't go and move in leisure for leisure, for sightseeing, for seeing different things. As a culture, we always restrain our land, our farm, our territory, but we need to change that culture. To change that culture of staying where you're born forever, to go somewhere that you have never seen. There's a matter of culture sometimes. The reason that our industry, our tourism industry never grew. So I recommend that we have to change that culture, stay in our homes and go to somewhere and integrate our brothers and other African nations.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So let's try to explore our own backyards on the continent. That's what the minister is telling us. And let's basically build that culture of doing domestic and intra-Africa tourism. Zephany, from your perspective, from Continental or specifically Rwanda's perspective, what programs are we looking at that will help the private sector to stimulate
growth through intra-Africa tourism, and what kind of linkages does it have with AU and the Continental Free Trade Area? Please.
Thank you very much, moderator.
You got Jeffrey online? Yeah.
Our role as government is to ensure that all of these nice things that Israel has mentioned, the private sector comes to benefit. Private sector comes to understand how can we tap into this. So what we've been doing is mainly running some discussions, workshops, awareness campaigns with members of the private sector to tell them these are the benefits which are being brought to the table by the CFTA, and this is how you can tap into this. That's number one. Then number two, it's also undertaking some government-to-government discussions. Of recent in Ghana, we went to the members of the private sector from tourism, from other sectors, to say, we know this is a continental thing, but at the end of the day, it comes back to the willingness of the states, governments, to be able to implement this, because you can actually have these things in papers, but if you don't have willingness of governments to implement it, it won't work. So we believe that in as much as we have the agreement signed, we need to put a lot of efforts in making sure that it's implemented. So our role as government has been in showing all of these benefits to the private sector. And then number two, saying which platform can we tap into to be able to benefit from these agreements. And number three, speaking to individual governments and say, all of us are part of these agreements. How can we make sure that we facilitate members of our private sectors to be able to benefit from this? We recently had a bilateral investment forum with members from Zimbabwe. He talked about Ghana. We had another one recently with some visitors from Mozambique. But all of us, the language is, we have this continental agreement that has been signed. Let us facilitate members of the private sector to be able to tap into that. So we believe that if we continue in that framework and ensure that we walk the talk, at the end of the day, the members of the private sector be able to benefit from this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you're right, as education, working together with the private sector, training, capacity building, skill development, and whatnot. And I'm personally aware of some of the work that Rwanda is doing, because we are involved in working on the intra-Africa tourism strategy, which I'm sure driven by the private sector. So thank you very much. Before we go to Dr. Manyera, Philip, from Tanzania perspective, in the interest of time, let's keep the answer short so that we can get our colleagues to ask more questions. Please.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's on now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. May I also take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this forum for giving us this important opportunity to share our views on how we can use different opportunities that are emanating in the continent to steer the development of tourism in the continent. We are probably aware that COVID has brought severe impact to our economies, and actually COVID has also taught us a lesson that tourism is very important to our economies. And that being the case, when I was hearing the different initiatives by the African Continental Free Trade Area, I noted that it is something that we need to support and ensure that it also helps us to develop our tourism. I heard of two important things when my colleague was speaking. One area was improving investment and improving travel within Africa. We understand that in tourism, we have always to speak of three important things. The three A's, which are commonly known in tourism. Africa is rich in the first A, which is attractions. We are very rich in that. You go to everywhere in Africa, you will notice that we are rich in attractions. But having attractions only does not help us to make money or develop our economies. We need another A, which he spoke about, which is accessibility. We have big problem in this even if today we develop one passport in Africa, but again, if we don't improve accessibility within Africa, then it will be another problem. Why should we travel to Europe or Far East in order to go to Africa? That is a major problem to us. And if we talk of developing regional tourism or Africa tourism, then we also need to look at how do we improve accessibility within Africa, which is now a major problem. If, for example, today I want to go to West Africa, for example, even if I have a free visa to go to to West Africa, but then I have to travel to Europe, then I come back to Africa. So you find it more costly, and you'll notice that the problem may not be necessarily the visa issue, but the connectivity, the accessibility of Africa. So I thought this is one area which we need to put our efforts more to address that problem of Africa connectivity. The other thing is the amenities. We are still short of investments which are good for tourism. We have tried our best to attract investment, but I think we need again to put more efforts to ensure that we improve investments within Africa. But for Tanzania, we have been very active in these economic blocks within Africa. And we have been, tourism is a private sector driven sector. We as governments are facilitators. And when we see such opportunities, we normally sit with our private sector and expose those opportunities for them to grasp and spear the development of the sector. So that is what I wanted to contribute to this chapter.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think great what you are talking about is accessibility. I think we are all well aware of that particular challenge. We got to deep into the solutions, and I think one of the solutions is the government itself looking at the airport taxes, because it's one of the biggest challenge to accessibility. Everyone talks about it, but we look at it. We talk about fifth freedom rights. Government has got that responsibility to look at it. And then we look at the open skies, it's also government. So it still comes back to us to deal with those issues, which will help the private sector basically to create more opportunities. I mean, before we come back to can we get Dr. Manyara, please, from UNECA, regarding how we go about getting one agency that will help drive and work with our colleagues, the minister, the directors, is driven by one specific agency, because there got to be one voice for all. And at the moment, we don't have that for tourism in Africa. We have to go through UNWTO for a lot of things to happen. If not, we have to do our own individual stuff. Can we get Dr. Manyara to respond to that, please?
Let me start by first thanking the organizers for this important forum. I think it is timely in the sense that of the challenges that we're actually facing currently, and the challenges are also presenting opportunities for us. As you've said, that we do need an organization that sort of coordinates activities, especially during these challenging times within the African continent. And I must say that the agenda is very, very clear on this. And unfortunately, I think not many people know about it. And what Agenda 2063 articulates was the need to have an African tourism organization. And I think it's quite important, knowing very well what the COVID challenges are brought about, given that there's been lack of coordination on how we tackle this pandemic, especially given the fact that tourism has been the most severely affected sector in the continent. And we've been, and I think this is the right time now again to revisit the issue. I mean, there's a lot of work that had been done previously on trying to establish this. There was an African Union meeting that was held in Lome in 2017, talking about the same issue. And I must say that I think there was a challenge at some point, and we must have lost track. But I think, again, this is the right time to revisit it, to start talking about this African Tourism Organization. I think it's the perfect time. And I'm glad that we have our honorable ministers present there that can actually take up this challenge with the African Union again to see how best we can progress the agenda. One of the things that came out during the COVID pandemic is in terms of the lack of coordination when you talk with the COVID protocol, for example. Now we saw a number of member states, because perhaps because of desperation, going to private sector organizations to get stamps of approval in terms of the protocols that they put in place. And I must say, this to us was a challenge in the sense that we regulating the public sector as opposed to the other way around. But again, I must say this was because of the lack of having a coordinating mechanism at the continental level. If you can hear me, and just allow me a few minutes just to talk about the issue to do with the African Continental Free Trade Area. And I'm glad that we have a colleague from the Secretariat there. One of the things that, again, as you mentioned, tourism is one of the priority services sectors. And I think it's important to note that within that, within the Continental Free Trade Area, there are opportunities that I imagine. One of the things that is very clear is that when you look at the tourism value chains in the African continent, or rather globally, comparatively globally, they have, the tourism value chains are actually quite weak. And I think the Continental Free Trade Area presents an opportunity for us to strengthen these linkages. I think he mentioned things to do with, for example, tapping into services that could be member states and so forth, the ease of movement of people that all this can actually help to contribute towards making the tourism industry very competitive in the African continent. Now, the other thing, again, we must talk about as Honorable is that we talk about the nature of tourism products. One of the things that's very clear is that we have similarity in terms of tourism products. If you look at, for example, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, but I think within the CFTA, we need to also explore other opportunities that may be there. And why am I saying this? Is that we have seen, for example, that if you look at the more mature destinations of the world, the urban areas, cities tend to be major destinations for the tourists.
I think before we come back to the team, in order not to exhaust the session and opportunity for the delegates, are there any questions from the floor that anyone would like to pose to any of our executives and the minister here? Any questions from the floor before we go back to the questions that we have? Okay. Can we get a mobile mic, please? Please, can we get a mic quickly? There is someone here. Please stand up. If you want to ask a question, there is a question here as well. Can we get one on this side? Please come forward, lady. Come, keep coming, please. Yeah, come forward. No, come. Right, yes, stand there. Yeah, stand there. Please go ahead. Keep it short and simple, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nexon. I'm from G-System Tours. We are a travel company that is working here in Rwanda. My question goes directly to Isaiah. I'm not sure the name, but I think so. So Africa in general is facing the issue of having the most expensive flight, and traveling within the continent is the most expensive thing to do if you are traveling. I'm a YouTuber and I've been hosting a lot of people here in Rwanda, but they are telling you that if I'm traveling maybe from Ghana to Rwanda, maybe I'm going to pay $500 one-way ticket. Why if someone want to travel maybe from Germany, going to Italy, going to Swiss, going to those European countries are so cheap, it's so cheap. And I would like to ask the people who are in charge of that, the stakeholders and the people who are in this tourism, what the measures they are doing or they are working on that can help Africans to travel within the continent for the cheap price, so they can be able to travel within the countries to visit all those countries in general.
Thank you very much. Desire, before you answer, let's take the second question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question is very straightforward. It's in connection.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Eko Samson, and I'm the Deputy CEO of Ghana Tourism Authority, Ghana. My question is very simple, and we all know the opportunity that the African Continental Free Trade Area has given to Africa. But I want to find in specific terms what policy intervention has been set up for the tourism and trade industry, as well as the free trade concept is applicable.
Great. Any question? The third one, then we can get them to answer, please. Please, the mic. We should have the mics on the floor, please. Two of them, one on the left, one on the right.
Thank you so much. My name is Fred Luzindana, and I'm from Vatia University. I have the question to Desire. He have mentioned about the Africa passport. That should be also the answer for the accessibility to the different instruction in Africa, and to also support different tourists, especially from Africa, in order to improve the region and domestic tourism in Africa. So I have the question about how does that Africa passport will quickly implement, and how many countries do you think will be interested in implement that one passport? Thank you so much.
Okay, now we got 3 questions. So let's answer and then we'll get the questions online. Please, let's start with the first question. And I think, Desire, you may possibly respond to it, the first and the last question. And then the ministers, Daphne and Philip, can attend to the other one. I hope if you got them right, please.
Yes, I got them, but because I'm with ministers as co-panelists, I think they can also comment on some of those questions.
I agree with you. I fully agree. Yeah.
So with regard to the cost of the fly in Africa, I think the moderator will make it very clear. It's a matter of taxes. Many countries are adding to the basic price many taxes. If you reduce those, then we have cheaper flights. This is the only solution. There's nothing to do with it at the continental level. We are not trying to dictate how to proceed on it, but we are already aware of how we can collaborate in order to reduce. And another one aspect I think is the minister from Tanzania who mentioned it, the connectivity. So why are they adding so many taxes on the price? They will say it's because the infrastructure, the cost of the infrastructure, how to maintain it, things like that. So all those elements are put in the same basket to add some taxes, which are not directly linked to the transport issues. Some of them are using to do something different, other policies. So it's at the national level, we are trying to address this issue, and our colleague working on the Yamoussoukro protocol, we are also collaborating on how to address this issue. I think maybe some additional element can be brought by the co-panelists.
Okay, let's go ahead,
yes,
please.
With regard to what has been put in place in terms of action, I said the AFCFTA is a new process. So what we are trying to do is to identify where we can improve to boost intra-Africa trade. In this aspect, bringing the private sector in the process is very key. This is why we have organized different meetings with the private sector, depending on the sector. Particularly in tourism, we are now starting the development of what we call a regulatory framework. Early next year, you will start be convened in Accra, although you are in Accra, to share with your counterpart from the private sector how best we can address how the private sector can efficiently use the benefit of the AFCFTA. So this is a process that is ready, that we are starting early next year, depending on where you stand. So I just wanted to give it as an information. Now, with the last one on the passport is attached to the free movement protocol. It's a protocol that has been signed here, that has been signed in Addis, and unfortunately, as you see, the enthusiasm of state parties to sign the AFCFTA is not the same with this free movement protocol. because on this framework protocol, you have then this Article 10 that provides with the African passport. But then when it comes to passport, it's a very sensitive issue. I agree, because behind the passport, you have many also concern: security concern, environmental concern, health concern, and so on and so on. So we are lobbying now, and next year in June, we will have a very huge continental forum. I think, Mr. Moderator, you will be part of that, to address this issue of how to ease the movement of people to fully benefit of the AFCFT, because without any free movement of people, individuals cannot benefit from the AFCFTA. So this is
Thank you very much.
element that I can bring. Mr.
In the interest of time, I will get, let's start with Minister Zafni and Philip, Mr. Manyera, please.
Still obstacles to increase the African tourism sector. So not only the passport, but also accessibility. For example, the visa restrictions and the hospitalities. There's a lot of other things, not only passports. So we need to change as well the way, the behavior of hospitalities and welcome the people. The visas getting the other states, African states, some states are restricted to go in. Also, it's very important for the taxation as well, taxation of the newcomers. And if we sort out all those issues and challenges, I think then finally we will get where Africans can go and just integrate each other. And thirdly, there is a general policy about the African Union to become priority for tourism sector. So
Right.
African Union can play a big role in this issue as well.
Okay, so we have to take it to Ambassador Muchanga, who is responsible for trade at the union, to carry on with the discussion. Definitely, please, your response to those questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly comment on some of the policies that we are asked by the Deputy CEO of the Tourism Board. I think some of this comes back to things like open visa policy, so that people can quickly move. Because if someone is preparing the travel, you just need to reduce on all of these cumbersome logistics. So if I know that I can easily, if you have a good product and I can easily come to your country, I will definitely add your country on my destination. I think there are probably three major variables when it comes to revenues that you get from tourism. It comes back to the number of visitors, the number of tourists who come in. It comes back to the average length of stay. Am I staying for 2 days? Am I staying for 3 days? And then it also comes back to the spending per day. How much am I spending per each of those days that I'm staying? So I think the moment we ease these elements of visas, and actually some of these initiatives doesn't need to be on the continental level. At the country level, we can make this decision. In Rwanda, now before we start with the Africans, if you're African, you would come and get a visa on arrival. But now it's for any citizen of the world. If you come, you get a visa on arrival. So that's number one. Then number two, I think when it comes also to facilitating investments in tourism, I think Desire was talking about standardization of services. It also comes back to facilitating investors, not putting restrictions. Someone being able to open a company, be in tourism, be in another sector, without any restriction. If I'm a foreigner, I should be able to come in a country, open a company without subjecting me to partner with a local. That's one. Number two, if I make profits, I pay taxes, I should be able to repatriate my capital. So to me, those are some of the policies that will be able to help us to boost these tourism activities.
Business-friendly framework for the tourism sector,
exactly.
to be able to allow people to operate within a country, travel. And for Rwanda, just to give you a case, a lot of the people who were coming were asking, are we going to get visa? How do we get visa? And we say you don't need visa if you're an African. And that made it easier for people to travel at a very short notice. So that makes a very big difference. Philip, just a quick one, then we go to Dr. Manyara, then we take the question on the floor, then we can wrap up.
Thank you very much. Tourism is a very cross-cutting sector, and therefore is affected by different policies of different sectors. So when we want to address issues regarding tourism, then we have to look at it properly. When you look at Africa, when we want now to go for the whole of Africa as a bloc, you will notice that within Africa, we have a lot of, we have a number of what we call multi-membership. We have other similar, blocks which are actually addressing the same issues. If you look at the issue of COVID, for example, most of the countries in Africa are members to different blocks already. When we're addressing the COVID, then these blocks, small ones, came up with different strategies to address COVID-19 issues. So I think one area which we need to look at is actually how do we address these issues of multi-membership? Because if we talk of Europe as a bloc, I don't know if they have these other small blocks within there. And I think if you talk of a visa issue, these blocks are also dealing with the same issues. So I don't know at which point will Africa as a whole address the issue of visa, while down there they're still crafting the same.
Oh, thank you.
So I think these are the issues which you need.
I think the point is harmonization. Yeah. How do we harmonize? And I think that is the essence of having policies like SATAM, the single air travel market policy of AFTA, and I think Agenda 2063 of the AU. So, but I think I still would challenge the point that it comes to the individual government to make sure that internally their policies are harmonized to work with different centers to make it work. Dr. Manyela, please, can you give us your last comment on that issue? Then we can get the one on the floor, then we wrap up, please. We are running out of time. Can we get Dr. Manyela?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I hope you can hear me because I think I got cut off. But I'm not sure what question was asked to me, but I just wanted to make a comment about being serious about intra-Africa tourism. And now that we have our ministers, I would like to challenge them to take leadership in holidaying in Africa, showcasing where they go and that sort of thing, because that's the only way we can seriously start promoting intra-Africa tourism. To have our tourism ministers, for example, I've challenged tourism ministers before. We don't see them going on holiday, and yet you get the point. So we have to take leadership from that point, and this being the platform, the African tourism leadership platform, I believe this is the right forum to really start challenging our leaders to show a strong initiative in promoting intra-Africa tourism. Thank you.
Okay, whilst we are waiting for him, can we get a question on the floor, please?
So we have two questions coming from our online audience. The first one is, how open is Africa to breaking barriers to entry for youth invitation? That's the first question. I'll repeat it. How open is Africa to breaking barriers to entry for youth invitation? That's number one. The second question is, the Kenya Association of Travel Agents partnered with Rwanda Development Board, RDB, in the promotion of intra-Africa travel. We've seen positive impacts on tourist arrivals into Rwanda due to this initiative. We are hungry to bring more countries into this partnership. How can you collaborate with us in achieving this objective? Thank you.
Okay, let me take the last one because I'm moderating in the interest of time. Third question, please finish. This is the last question. Go ahead. Can we give me the mic, please? We have to wrap up. Whilst he's dealing with that, I think with the Kenya Travel Agents Association, CATA, what you can do is you can engage us. We will link you to the various apex bodies in the various countries and the tourism organizations in countries. I'm sure they are all hungry to collaborate. So you can engage with Africa Tourism Leadership, Africa Tourism Partners, the organizers of this event. We can support you and in that regard. Please, your question.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Yasser. I'm from Somalia, accompanying with the delegate of the minister. I have two questions here. One is we have keep hearing about pandemic, COVID, and so on.
Yeah, please keep the question short and simple.
We as African, we are talking about the leadership of tourism. After COVID, how ready and how prepared we are to welcome the world? Are we facility-wise, mechanism-wise, mentally-wise, are we ready to welcome the world if tomorrow they say pandemic has been stopped? So how far we are?
How ready are we?
How
in terms
ready are
of
we are?
recovery, right?
And the second thing is the air connectivity is another issue. You may see somebody flying from Togo, want to go to Rwanda, Angola, coming to East Africa and going back to Rwanda. So, and now I would like to ask this direct question to the Deputy CEO. Rwanda has going forward with the Rwanda Air. And as we know, 1st of December, we're heading to Doha. So how about, is there any plan for Rwanda Air traveling to all African countries so it will be easy for us to travel within
so
the
basically
continent?
it's
Thank
about
you.
connectivity, right, and recovery. Let's use that as the parting shot. Let's start from Desiree, and then we go to the minister. Please, those are the last questions. If you have any other question, send it online or give it to the moderator who will address them as we go forward. Please, Desiree.
Please,
2 seconds.
The first question was, can you remind me the first question?
His first question, what is the recovery plan, basically, for COVID?
Oh, the recovery plan. I think in this one, as the Deputy Minister made it clear, there is no coordination in terms of recovery plan. We can see that different regs are addressing the issue with different policy, with different strategy. I think there must be a consensus where we meet together and have a common view on how to address, because there are some key issues that we are sharing together. How we facilitate the movement of people, the visa issues that were mentioned by the CEO, the issue of taxes, the issue of unnecessary measure attached to COVID restrictions. So those few issues is collaboration.
Thank you. I think the question online was about accessibility, which I think we've addressed. It's about taxes, it's about policies, and issues of, again, collaboration and harmonization. Philip, your question, the other question for him was about Rwanda Air, but that will go purely to this Deputy CEO. Philip, your parting shot, please.
My colleague Yasin wanted to know how ready are we?
Right.
Previously, I talked of different blocks coming up with different strategies, which respective countries had to adopt and develop their own strategies to deal with COVID. If I go back to specific to Tanzania, we took those strategies, we internalized them, and we actually did very rapid assessment immediately after the first case of COVID, and then we developed the standard operating procedures for the country. Thereafter, we had to train the frontliners in tourism. After that, we had also to communicate what were our readiness to the markets through online meetings. And now we have put tourism frontliners in the vaccination campaign as priority groups. Those efforts actually awarded Tanzania a safe travel stamp. And now, as I'm speaking, we are already receiving big groups of tourists coming to Tanzania.
Great. So it's about making sure internally it's clear, education, taking what the world is doing, the continent is doing, harmonizing and making sure that it's applied on the ground and educating people about it. Thank you very much. Please, Daphne, you can respond to both questions briefly because I think we've overstayed our welcome.
Thank you. Definitely, the airline is one of the difficult industries or tough business to maintain because, I think several countries try to start these airlines, and as you definitely see, some don't sustain or don't survive all of these disturbances or disruptions when it comes to travels. But I think some of the key things that we've been doing as the country is ensuring that our national airline enters into several strategic partnerships, especially when it comes to aspects like code sharing, when it comes to aspects like ensuring that they also even lower prices to ensure that they catalyze other sectors of the economy, because it's not about what we get from the ticketing. It also comes back to making sure that if you have a meeting like this, you facilitate people to come in. People get the flights which can come to Kigali, and then we catalyze the rest of the sector, including meetings, including agriculture, because as all of us are here, we're going to eat, and whatever that we're eating is from our agriculture sector. So you're basically using the airline to catalyze other sectors of the economy. So I think as we move forward, what the airline has been doing is really building those strategic partnerships to ensure that where they cannot go, they can at least use this code sharing with other airlines and still be able to transport visitors to Rwanda at an affordable rate. So that's
thank you very much. Minister, your final parting shot?
Actually, yes, I see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a big opportunity that we can improve the African tourism. So only we need the three elements: connectivity, accessibility, and hospitality. So those three areas can be a sum up all issues, either the visa or taxation or integration or hospitalities and everything. I would like in this opportunity to praise the Rwandan policy and strategy about the tourism, because of it's only the few African countries who have a free visa. You can come straight away upon the arrival. In Somalia, we take that same strategy for upon arrival to get the tourism people to get the visa at the airport. So I think we can improve and work on that on policy level, the head of state level, and the institutions and the ministerial and other institutions. And finally, we need to encourage the African middle classes to go and rather than go into the Europe or Asia, go to Africa.
Charity begins at home. We got to start from here. At home.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, give them a round of applause, please. Just some quick highlights. We will possibly, the team sitting here becomes the working group to engage Africa Continental Area, Desiree. We got to engage AU, and from there we can look at different countries. So that is the working group for us to push this agenda. That is one. The second important point, which I'm going to ask the same group to look into, is the harmonization of COVID protocols. South Africa is one of the only countries at the moment when you get your 72-hour COVID test, you don't need to do one again on arrival. And I think if we want to grow and reduce the cost of travel, COVID is now a very critical component. From my own strategy, I consider H as part of the traditional, what we call the pestle when we are doing strategies. So we got to look into that. And the third one is to see how we can work closely with everybody, the private sector, educate, and educate so that we can progress. On this note, I would like to say thank you. We've overstayed our welcome, and we hand over to the MC. Thank you. Give yourself a round of applause for being good listeners.